When you Google someone's name, you're often directed to social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. These platforms tell you plenty: job titles, achievements, educational backgrounds, and how many people they know. You'll see photos of exotic trips, with them disproportionately in the foreground, and a curated collection of polished, tech-enhanced selfies. But what do these snapshots really tell us? Are we learning about the person, or just their carefully crafted highlight reel? Beneath the surface lies a bigger question. In a world obsessed with achievement and appearance, have we stopped seeing people for who they truly are? Chapter 1. The Rat Race. In our modern world, it often feels like everyone is running a race, but few stop to question what they're running toward. From the moment we meet someone, first question is, what do you do? This seemingly innocent inquiry is often loaded with judgment, as if our worth can be neatly packaged into a job title or a list of accomplishments. Are you worthy enough to sit beside me? It's not just curiosity, it's an assessment, a subtle measurement of value. Social media amplifies this obsession. Platforms like LinkedIn parade our professional milestones, while Instagram and Facebook curate a highlight reel of our lives. But do these achievements, these fleeting glimpses, tell us who we are? Or are they just a mask we wear to gain approval in a society that equates success with self-worth? This relentless focus on doing rather than being traps us in what psychologists call the achievement treadmill, always moving, never arriving. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory highlights how we constantly measure ourselves against others, but this comparison often feels like comparing apples to oranges. Their achievements may have no bearing on the life we truly want to live. In Stoic terms, this obsession with external validation misses the essence of what makes life meaningful. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to focus on what is within our control, our character, our actions, and our thoughts. Yet society pushes us to chase what lies beyond our control, recognition and applause. But here's the paradox. By defining ourselves through achievements, we risk losing sight of the person behind them. True worth isn't built on shifting sands. It's found in the quiet, steady foundation of being, not doing. Chapter 2. What are we? We live in a world that rewards action and dismisses stillness. People are often valued for what they produce, accomplish, or display. This mindset turns us into human doings rather than human beings. We're not appreciated for simply existing, for being present in our own lives. Instead, our value is tied to our output. Imagine a tree. Its worth doesn't come from how quickly it grows or how many fruits it bears. A tree is valuable simply because it is. It offers shade, beauty, and life to the world around it. Human beings, too, hold inherent value simply by existing. Yet society tells us otherwise. If you're not producing, earning, or achieving, you're wasting time. Philosophers like Epictetus would challenge this. To the Stoics, our worth isn't defined by external achievements. It's rooted in virtue, the integrity of our character, how we respond to challenges, and how we treat others. Virtue isn't flashy. It doesn't trend on social media or win awards, but it is stable, unlike the endless pursuit of status and success. Psychologically, this obsession with doing triggers an internal conflict. The more we tie our worth to our achievements, the more anxious we become. Every failure feels like a threat to our identity. What happens when we can't meet society's expectations? Are we less human, less deserving of respect? This approach to life dehumanizes us. It turns us into machines, constantly performing, constantly producing. But life is not a checklist of accomplishments. It's also the quiet moments, the relationships we nurture, and the kindness we show. To stop seeing ourselves as human doings is to reclaim our humanity. It's a shift from asking, what have I achieved, to who am I becoming? Chapter 3. The Mirror. We often see ourselves not through our own eyes, but through the reflection others provide. Like standing in front of a distorted mirror, we gauge our worth based on the approval, admiration, or envy we receive. Social media, as the clearest example, amplifies this tendency. Every post, every selfie, every achievement shared becomes a measurement, a subtle way of asking the world, am I enough? Psychologist Charles Cooley described this as the looking glass self. We form our identity based on how we believe others see us. If they praise us, we feel valuable. If they overlook us, we shrink inside. This external dependence turns self-worth into a fragile thing, easily shattered by criticism or indifference. Instead of cultivating a stable sense of self, we become servants to public perception. The Stoics, however, warned against this. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, living authentically means letting go of a need for constant validation. True strength comes from building an internal compass, one that doesn't waver when others turn their backs. Yet, in our achievement-driven society, this is easier said than done. When your accomplishments become your currency, losing status feels like bankruptcy. It's no wonder comparison becomes unavoidable, triggering jealousy, anxiety, and even despair. But whose standards are we measuring ourselves against, and are they even worth pursuing? Freedom comes when we stop looking outward for our value. Instead of comparing our lives to someone else's highlight reel, we can ask ourselves, am I living by my own principles? Am I building the character I admire? After all, the world's judgment is fickle, but the strength of our character, how we choose to live. Chapter 4. The Illusion of Endless Progress. That modern society glorifies progress, as if life were a staircase where each step brings us closer to some ultimate goal. More money, more recognition, more success. It never stops. When to stop? But what happens when we reach a landing, or worse, realize there's no final step? But the pursuit itself often feels like a mirage, pulling us further into a desert of dissatisfaction. In psychology, this cycle is referred to as the hedonic treadmill. Achievements give us temporary joy, but the feeling fades, leaving us craving the next big thing. You get the job, the promotion, the applause, but soon enough you want more. It's like chasing the horizon. No matter how far you go, it always stays just out of reach. Success isn't additional. You'll automatically succeed when you are a whole. Stoic thinkers like Seneca understood this trap. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In other words, the endless need for progress isn't a sign of growth. It's a form of slavery. We chain ourselves to the idea that success will one day make us whole, but life doesn't operate on a linear path. Progress, as society defines it, rarely leads to contentment. A person who constantly pursues what's next risks missing the beauty of what is. Fulfillment comes not from external milestones, but from an internal shift in perspective. The question then is simple. Are we progressing towards something meaningful, or just moving for the sake of motion? The Stoics remind us that real progress isn't measured in accomplishments, but in wisdom. Have we learned to desire less? Have we grown in patience, resilience, and gratitude? If not, all the trophies in the world will feel empty. Chapter 5. Hustle Culture and the Myth of Purpose. In today's world, grind and hustle are not just words. They're virtues. Everywhere you look, someone preaches the value of working harder, longer, and faster. Rise and grind, they say, as if every waking moment must be spent chasing productivity. This relentless culture has packaged exhaustion as purpose and busyness as a badge of honor. The myth of hustle culture lies in its promise. Work hard and you'll find purpose and success. But isn't the purpose is nothing more than an overrated rat chase for wealth, status, or admiration? The reality is, hustle culture often leaves us drained, disillusioned, and wondering what all the effort was really for. When you're whole and confident in your own skin, wealth, status, admiration will come looking for you, let alone chasing them. Psychologist Adam Grant describes this as workism, the idea that work is not just something we do, but the very core of our identity. It's no longer enough to work to live. We now live to work. Hustle culture praises those who sacrifice sleep, health, and relationships in the name of productivity. But at what cost? Burnout, anxiety, and a loss of self are the inevitable outcomes. The Stoics, however, had a different view of purpose. Marcus Aurelius believed that meaningful work serves a higher good. It aligns with virtue, not vanity. Purpose isn't found in grinding endlessly for material rewards, but in contributing to something larger than ourselves. To break free from hustle culture, we must question what we're truly working for. Is our effort guided by our own principles, or are we slaves to someone else's definition of success? True purpose doesn't drain us, it sustains us. It's the quiet work of building a life that reflects our values, not just our achievements. Chapter 6. The fear that controls us. In a society obsessed with achievement, failure becomes more than just a setback. It feels like a judgment of our very worth. It's no wonder we go to great lengths to avoid it. Failure is treated as a stain, a mark that separates the winners from the losers. But this fear doesn't just paralyze us, it blinds us to the deeper lessons failure has to offer. Psychologically, this avoidance is rooted in what's known as ego threat. When we tie our identity to our accomplishments, failure doesn't just mean I failed. It feels like I am a failure. This can trigger shame, anxiety, and even depression. Instead of seeing failure as a moment, we make it a defining feature of who we are. The Stoics approached failure differently. To them, failure was neither good nor bad. It was simply feedback. Epictetus taught that events themselves don't disturb us. It's our judgment of those events that causes distress. If we fail and believe it defines us, we suffer. But if we see failure as a chance to grow, to correct our course, then it becomes a teacher. Ironically, the fear of failure keeps us stuck. It stops us from taking risks, exploring new ideas, or pursuing the life we truly want. We cling to what's safe, even if it's unsatisfying. But to live fully, we must accept failure as part of the process. Think of failure as a sculptor. Each mistake carves away what's unnecessary, revealing something stronger, clearer, and more authentic underneath. It's through failure, not in spite of it, that we refine who we are. The real failure, as the Stoics remind us, is refusing to try at all. Chapter 7. Narcissism. In a world that rewards visibility, it's no surprise that many of us become performers on a stage we never asked to be on. Social media and hustle culture encourage us to curate ourselves, highlighting success, perfection, and achievement while concealing anything less. This constant showcasing blurs the line between confidence and narcissism. Narcissism, in its modern form, isn't necessarily malicious. It often emerges as a survival mechanism in an achievement-driven society. When our worth depends on how we're seen, it's tempting to project an idealized version of ourselves. But this pursuit comes at a cost. We lose touch with who we really are. Psychologists distinguish between healthy self-esteem and narcissistic tendencies. While self-esteem is built on internal confidence, narcissism feeds on external validation. The Stoics would say that this external dependency makes us vulnerable. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." The irony is that narcissism, fueled by the need to appear valuable, often leaves us feeling hollow. A life spent chasing admiration turns into an endless performance, one that requires constant applause to keep going. And when the applause fades, we're left with a fragile self-image, dependent on others for its survival. True strength, the Stoics teach, comes from within. It's not built on others' perception, but on the quiet confidence of knowing who you are. When we stop looking in the mirror for approval and start living by our principles, we free ourselves from this trap. After all, no amount of external admiration can replace the peace of living authentically. Chapter 8. If we strip away our titles, achievements, and curated personas, what remains? For many, this question feels unsettling, because we've spent our lives defining ourselves by what we do, rather than who we are. In an achievement-driven world, our self-worth becomes fragile, easily swayed by success or failure. But it doesn't have to be this way. The Stoics teach us that our inherent worth is not dependent on external measures. Epictetus reminds us, "You are a distinct portion of the essence of God and contain a part of Him in yourself." In other words, simply by existing, we hold value. We are not human doings, endlessly measured by productivity, but human beings, complete and valuable as we are. Reclaiming self-worth begins by detaching it from outcomes we can't fully control. The promotion, the applause, the milestones. All of these lie outside of us. What is within us answers a simple question. However, is our character, how we live, the choices we make, and how we treat others. These are the measures of a meaningful life, not achievements that fade with time. When we focus on being, on cultivating virtues like wisdom, kindness, and resilience, we create a foundation that external circumstances cannot shake. Imagine a tree rooted deep in the ground. Storms may come, but it remains steady because its strength is within. Similarly, anchoring self-worth in our inner selves makes us unmovable in a world that constantly shifts. The achievement society demands we prove our value, but the Stoic path reminds us we already have it. By living according to our values, embracing stillness, and letting go of external judgments, we reclaim what we always possessed, our humanity. In the end, true worth is not something we earn. It is something we recognize and choose to honor. Finding balance. Through this guide, we've explored the many traps of an achievement-driven society, from our obsession with status to the fear of failure, from hustle culture to the rise of Gnosticism. We've seen how modern life often distorts what it means to live well. The central theme is clear. We must stop tying our worth to external achievements and start reclaiming it from within. But does this mean we stop striving for growth? Should we abandon ambition, give up on success, and live a stagnant life? Absolutely not. The lesson here isn't to reject growth, but to redefine it. True growth isn't about chasing validation or material success. It's about becoming better, not in comparison to others, but in alignment with our own principles and values. The Stoics believed in progress, not as a race for accolades, but as the daily practice of becoming wiser, kinder, and more resilient. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Growth, in this sense, isn't loud or flashy. It's steady, intentional, and grounded in our character. 1. Detach from outcomes. Focus on your effort, not the result. You can't control every outcome, but you can control how you show up. 2. Limit social comparison. Use social media mindfully. Ask yourself, does this inspire me or make me feel less than? If it's the latter, take a step back. 3. Redefine success. Define success on your own terms. Instead of chasing what society celebrates, pursue what aligns with your values. Embrace stillness. Carve out moments of quiet reflection daily, away from the noise. Growth doesn't always come from action. Sometimes it comes from sitting still and listening. Patience is the key. 5. Practice gratitude. Instead of always looking ahead to what's missing, take stock of what you already have. Gratitude anchors you to the present. 6. Pursue virtue. Focus on qualities that endure: integrity, wisdom, compassion, and courage. These are the markers of a meaningful life. A life of balance. The world will always celebrate external achievement, but we can choose to live differently. This is about patience and virtue, finding happiness in between struggles. Growth doesn't require constant hustle. It requires purpose. Success doesn't have to be measured by wealth or recognition. It can be found in the quiet pride of living authentically. The greatest achievement is not what you accumulate, but who you become. Be a human being, not just a human doing. By finding balance between ambition and stillness, effort and acceptance, we can live a life that is both fulfilling and true to ourselves. In the end, growth isn't about reaching the top of the ladder, it's about taking steps, however small, toward a life of deeper meaning. The world may applaud you for what you do, but only you can honor yourself for who you are.